Today we're going to be looking at the Gospel of Matthew.
Okay.
First of all, I guess, what is it about the Gospel of Matthew that makes it so interesting to you?
Well, I think Matthew is really interesting because it's not just telling the story of Jesus.
Yeah.
It's really framing him within centuries of Jewish tradition and prophecy. I think Matthew really goes out of his way to show how Jesus fulfills those prophecies about the Messiah. And, it's not just the big obvious ones like, the virgin birth, which we see in Matthew 1.23.
Right.
He even uses seemingly minor details like Jesus being called a Nazarene,
Okay.
which we see in Matthew 2.23.
So, even just where he's from is supposed to be, further proof.
Right.
Okay, what's the significance of him being called a Nazarene?
Nazarene connects back to Isaiah 11.1,
Okay.
where it talks about a branch from the stem of Jesse. So this branch imagery, kind of symbolizes lineage.
Okay.
It hints at Jesus' Davidic roots,
Okay, gotcha.
his messianic destiny.
So it's like Matthew saying, see,
Yeah.
even the prophets knew this was going to happen.
Yeah, even the prophets knew where he would come from.
Okay, interesting. So he's laying out the evidence, really meticulously connecting all the dots between prophecy and Jesus' life.
Mm-hmm.
You've also got a bunch of excerpts in here about the kingdom of heaven, particularly a lot of his parables, like the parable of the sower. What makes Matthew's take on the kingdom of heaven different from the other gospels?
Well, for Matthew, the kingdom of heaven is more than just a future promise.
Okay.
It's breaking into the present through Jesus' ministry.
Okay.
Look at how he kicks things off in Matthew 4.17.
Okay.
With that really powerful line, repent for the kingdom of heaven is at hand.
That's, that's not really a gentle invitation.
Not at all.
It's like, hey.
It's a call to immediate action.
Yeah.
It's, the kingdom demands a radical shift
Okay.
in our priorities and our way of life.
Okay.
And the parables, with their vivid imagery, they really drive that point home.
All right.
They reveal the nature of the kingdom, and they challenge people to examine their own response to it.
So speaking of challenging, talk about the miracles first.
Okay.
You've got excerpts in here about the healing of the leper, which is Matthew 8.
Yeah.
And the raising of Jairus' daughter, which is Matthew 9.
Right.
Why do you think Matthew insists so much on the historical reality of these events?
Some scholars interpret the miracles symbolically.
Yeah.
But Matthew seems to be really determined to ground them in reality.
Okay.
He describes them with specific details. He names people. He names places.
Right.
So this suggests that for him, the miracles weren't just teaching tools.
Yeah.
They were demonstrations of Jesus' divine power and authority.
Okay.
They showed that God's kingdom wasn't just a concept.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually transforming lives in these concrete, undeniable ways.
And those displays of power really tie directly into his authority as a teacher, right?
Absolutely.
Especially when it comes to the demands of discipleship.
Yeah. Yeah, Matthew portrays discipleship as more than just accepting Jesus' teachings. It's about radical obedience and aligning your life with the values of the kingdom, even when that's difficult.
Yeah, and you even picked out that excerpt where Jesus tells someone, follow me and let the dead bury their dead.
Right.
Which is in Matthew 8.
Yeah.
That's a pretty harsh statement.
Yeah.
How do we reconcile that with the image of Jesus as being, loving and compassionate?
It's definitely a jarring statement, but it gets to the heart of what true discipleship means for Matthew.
Okay.
It's not about half-hearted commitment. It's about complete surrender to Jesus' authority, even if it means leaving behind what we consider important, even family obligations.
So it's about prioritizing the kingdom above all else.
Exactly. And this theme of radical commitment is woven throughout Matthew's gospel.
Okay.
And it culminates in the events surrounding Jesus' death and resurrection.
Especially knowing how meticulously Matthew ties everything back to prophecy.
Right.
It feels like every event, every detail is loaded with meaning.
Right. Matthew isn't just recounting historical events.
Yeah.
He's interpreting them through the lens of faith.
Okay.
He's showing how Jesus' death, even in its brutality, fulfills the prophecies about the suffering servant and ultimately brings about salvation.
And of course, there's the resurrection.
Right.
How does Matthew use that to reinforce his message about the kingdom of heaven?
The resurrection is the ultimate victory over death.
Okay.
And the confirmation of Jesus' divine authority.
Mm-hmm.
It's the foundation of Christian faith and the promise that the kingdom of heaven is not just a future hope,
Right.
but a present reality that has the power to transform lives. What do you think Matthew's trying to convey by emphasizing these eyewitness accounts?
I think it makes it feel more more grounded. It's like this isn't just a story. It adds that layer of credibility to the whole narrative.
And that credibility is crucial for Matthew's audience, who are grappling with the implications of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection.
Right.
He's building a case for their faith, showing them how it all fits together within their own tradition and scriptures.
So speaking of fitting things together, we've been talking a lot about these big dramatic moments of Jesus' life, the miracles, the teachings, the crucifixion, the resurrection. But you also selected a passage from the Sermon on the Mount.
Yeah.
That seems a bit quieter, more contemplative. Okay. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth.
Right.
What resonates with you about that particular teaching?
I think it challenges our assumptions about what it means to be blessed.
It's about humility, gentleness, a willingness to surrender to a power greater than ourselves.
And that ties back to the themes of discipleship and surrendering to the will of God, right?
Absolutely. The meek, in Matthew's view, are those who recognize their dependence on God and live in accordance with his will. They're the ones who inherit the earth, not through force or conquest, but through their humility and their commitment to the values of the kingdom.
It's a powerful message, especially in a world that often seems to reward aggression and self-promotion.
It is, and I think it speaks to a deep longing within us for a different way of being, a way of life that's grounded in something more than just our own ambitions and desires.
It's also interesting how this idea of meekness contrasts with the common perception of Matthew's gospel as being very focused on law and judgment. Yeah. We see that in the excerpts where Jesus clashes with the Pharisees and Sadducees, challenging their interpretations of the law. That's a great observation. Matthew does emphasize the importance of following Jesus' teachings, but it's not about blind obedience to a set of rules. It's about living a life that reflects the heart of the law. Love for God and love for neighbor.
And those clashes with the religious authorities really highlight the radical nature of Jesus' message, don't they? It's like he's challenging the status quo, pushing people to rethink their assumptions about religion and righteousness.
Exactly. And that's something that continues to resonate today. Matthew's gospel challenges us to examine our own hearts, to ask ourselves whether our faith is authentic, whether it's truly transforming our lives and leading us to a deeper understanding of God's will.
As we've been talking about these excerpts, I've been struck by how Matthew masterfully weaves together all these different elements. History, prophecy, theology, ethics. It's like he's creating this tapestry that's both beautiful and complex.
It's a masterful work of literature and theology, and it's not just about conveying information.
It's about inviting the reader into a deeper experience of faith. I think one of the most rewarding aspects of studying Matthew is discovering how his words continue to speak to us across centuries and cultures.
And that's what makes this deep dive so valuable, isn't it? It's not just about learning facts about the Gospel of Matthew. It's about engaging with it in a way that deepens our understanding of ourselves, our faith, and the world around us.
Exactly. It's about encountering the living Word and allowing it to transform us.
One thing that's really stuck with me is how Matthew portrays the humanity of Jesus. We see his compassion, his vulnerability.
His anger at injustice. It makes him feel more relatable, more accessible.
That's a crucial aspect of Matthew's portrayal. He doesn't shy away from the fullness of Jesus's human experience. His emotions, his struggles, his moments of doubt and despair, and yet through it all, we see his unwavering commitment to his mission and his deep love for humanity.
And that's ultimately what makes his message so compelling, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not just a set of abstract teachings, it's the lived experience of someone who walked among us, who shared our joys and sorrows, who ultimately gave his life for our sake.
It's a story that continues to inspire and challenge us to live lives of purpose and meaning, and Matthew's gospel provides us with a roadmap for that journey.
I feel like we've gained a deeper appreciation for the richness and complexity of his gospel.
I agree, and I think that's the beauty of studying scripture. There's always more to discover, more to ponder, more to be transformed by.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what final thought would you leave our listener with? What's the one takeaway you hope they'll carry with them from this exploration of Matthew's gospel?
Well, I think the most important thing to remember is that Matthew's gospel isn't just a historical account or a collection of teachings.
It's an invitation, right?
Exactly. It's an invitation to encounter Jesus, to wrestle with his words, to allow his message to challenge and transform us. And Matthew gives us tools to grapple with those questions.
Okay.
He shows us how Jesus embodies the fulfillment of prophecy,
Right.
the radical love at the heart of the kingdom, and that challenging yet ultimately life-giving path of discipleship.
One thing that's really striking about Matthew's gospel is the way it balances those kind of like weighty theological ideas
Right.
with these very human stories.
Right, we see Jesus engaging with people from all walks of life, the marginalized, the religious elite. He challenges them, he heals them, he teaches them.
Yeah.
And through those encounters, we really see that transformative power of God's love in action.
And that transformative power is still at work today, right?
Absolutely.
Even for those of us who are centuries removed from the events that Matthew describes.
Yeah, the gospel's not a relic of the past. It's a living word.
Okay.
It continues to speak to us today.
So it's not just about reading and understanding Matthew.
Right.
It's about putting his teachings into practice.
Exactly. It's about allowing the gospel to shape our hearts, our minds, and our actions.
Well said. I think the most important takeaway is the one you just highlighted. The gospel is a living word.
Yeah.
An invitation to encounter Jesus and to allow his message to transform our lives.
It's a journey that's both challenging and rewarding. And I encourage our listener to continue exploring Matthew's gospel, to delve deeper into its mysteries, and to discover the richness it holds for their own life of faith.
And for you, dear listener, we hope this has been more than just a summary of Matthew.
Right.
We hope it sparked your own curiosity and given you some new insights to ponder on your own journey of faith.
Keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep allowing the gospel to transform you.